Now we have come to the last part of this, as I at least think, interesting conference seminar. And now we have been moving from different perspective. And now we're going to listen to some speeches that gives our friends in other parts of connected with the European Union that has some similarities to us in this area, a little bit away, as used to say that Brussels is a little bit, it's not so central as we would like to be, but other perspectives are. But we are going to listen to some speeches and messages from other friends in the European Union that has some similarities and some differences. And at first we're going to listen to Mr. Fernando Almeida, who is the Regional Director of Transport, Regional Government of Azores. And he's going to give you an outlook about the Azores and his job. But in a way, we are colleagues because I'm responsible for some of the questions in Region Västerbotten. So it's very interesting to have you here and listen to your perspective, especially on Azores and the transport system in general and about the European Union and the outermost areas.
Okay.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
So thank you for the invitation. Thank you for listening to me. This is a major challenge because it's the first session after lunch and it's always a major challenge. But I will not ask you to stand up and make things like that. I'll just try to keep the things flowing. Transportation for us is like heart beating. So airlines are the right side of the art and maritime transport is the left side of the art. And I can tell you that my left side of the art keep me awake until 5 o'clock in the morning because we have a major strike in mainland ports. So I keep getting calls until 5 o'clock. I was expecting to be able to do this presentation without paper support, but I decided to take it with me, otherwise it would be difficult. So, the Azores. We are speaking about 9 islands in the middle of the ocean, 600 kilometers from Santa Maria to Corvo. Okay. 9 airports, 15 ports. We have about 246,000 inhabitants, half of them in Ponta Delgada, the main island, and usually we look at the archipelago as 3 main regions. The occidental part with 2 islands, the central with 5 islands, and the oriental, the central, and the occidental with 2 other small islands. You can see from this that we are an outermost peripheral region concerning to Europe, to mainland, and we also have specificities of islands, small islands that are peripheral regions concerning to the main island, and that's quite important. My presentation, what I will do is I will share with you what we have implemented as maritime transport model, both for passengers and for cargo, some investments we are doing for next year, and then I will share some considerations about the programs and the way we think we should address the peripheral regions. Okay, so consider our geography. It's quite clear that transports are a critical factor, both in terms of internal connections and connection to the outside world. What we have done with the goal to increase the mobility and development of the internal market is to reinforce our air transport capability, and after that we made major investments in ports infrastructure and updated our maritime resources. Okay. For passenger transport, how does it work in the Azores? There are public service obligations applied for regular maritime transport service for passengers and the vehicles full year in these three islands, Horta, Pico and São Jorge, and in these two islands, Flores and Corvo. We also have a seasonal operation between May and October that does the transportation on all the archipelago, okay? For cargo transport, it is fully liberalized, except between Corvo and Flores, where there is also public service obligations. However, concerning our situation, the Portuguese government carried some public service obligations between the transportation between mainland and the region, and any provider that wants to service the Azores must make sure we have weekly connections between mainland and the Azores and vice versa. They have to scale every island at least twice a month, and they have to make sure all the islands have equal cost. Okay? This model was designed to guarantee that all the islands, regardless of the size and traffic, can be properly served. Okay. Concerning to interland cabotage, we are limited to one small operators without regional expression, and you will see that we are working to change that. What are our next steps? Despite the overall recognition in the Azorian society and probably in mainland that the regular maritime transport between all the islands would be important to create what we call an internal market, until now there was never a private initiative for providing this service. So we can say that actually we have no maritime system for transport passengers and vehicles between all the islands all the year on a regular basis, and that makes difference for the regional economy. Considering we have a good investment in ports, it now becomes crucial to acquire new vessels that can address this challenging. So we are considering the acquisition, construction of two ferry maritime transport that will operate all the year, connecting all the islands, and this will enable for someone that produces something in Santa Maria, that is a huge producer of watermelons, just to pick the car, put it on the ferry, and sell it all over the archipelago. Okay. This investment is part of a strategy for development and improvement of the quality of the maritime system, and we expect it to have a significant impact on job creation and economic expansion of our internal Azorian market. Now, sharing some words about the limitations we identify. Actually, the financial instruments don't completely meet the needs of the Azores. We think they should be complemented by instruments dedicated to European maritime transport for peripheral regions as the Azores. We are 2 hours and 15 minutes flying from mainland. We are not half an hour from our capital city. It's quite different. And I'm speaking about Ponta Delgada, because if I speak about Corvo, it's a little bit worse. We are probably 4 hours from mainland. So what we consider should be reviewed is ultra-peripheral locations as Azores should have their level of funding measured. Considering the nature of our traffic, imbalance and low volume, we should be granted a preferential rate. The connection of the ports, of at least one port in the Azores, and it would be probably Ponta Delgada, to Lisbon port should be eligible as a project. As the connection between Ponta Delgada and Terceira, and the connection between the main port of the Azores and the main port of other Macaronesian archipelagos, like Madeira or Canarias. Another theme, another subject that is quite important for us is the environment challenge. Imposing measures on monitoring, reporting, verification of the carbon dioxide emissions will difficult the development and increase development costs. The Azores government presented several proposals for amendments concerning to this subject, which was focused essentially in predicting an exception time for the region. And however, we have support by national authorities. We were not succeed with the European authorities. This measure will be, if later associated with limiting or correcting instruments like fees for gas emissions, as has happened in the aviation sector, will significantly damage our economy agents. Considering, our opinion is considering that we are not excluded from the application of the regulation, it's important, and we consider it's necessary, to create an incentive system for the companies operating the archipelago to avoid the cost of transport to be returned to the population and major economic agents. So, let me check the time. To finish, we believe the implementation and the operation of different types of European mechanisms and instruments is an opportunity that must be addressed, but it needs to consider the particular conditions of the ultra-peripheral regions, and in this case of the Azores Islands. Steps must be taken to allow outermost regions to be able to take full advantage of motorways of the seas, which is not the case at the present moment. And we believe it's an essential priority to continually promote actions that favors the principles of solidarity, cohesion, territoriality, defending these principles in Brussels in order to create a network of non-discriminatory but integrated transport in Europe, a network that must also serve the outermost maritime regions in general and the Azores Islands in particular case. Just to finish, I would like to share with you this slide. We consider that due to our geostrategic position, where we lie in the confluence of several major shipping routes, we can have something to say in future supplier of LNG, creating bunkering LNG capacities in the Azores. And that's it. Thank you for your attention.